CHRONICLES.
Up to that, and then as we get into the family of David, we're going to be noting that there are also the families of the sisters were written as we looked at from Israel today. We talked to. Maybe, did we get to that? The sons of David. I'm not back up. Did we get to chapter 2?
No.
Anybody remember?
We left off it.
So that tells me what I need. That tells me where I am. All right, so we'll go back to 1 Chronicles 2 and go from Israel. From Israel, that is from Jacob to David is the lineage that's being traced here. And I noticed that there are some asides here about the sisters and the sisters' lineage as well. What you got?
I'm not getting anything out of your sound.
There's nothing
Just shut it off and turn it back on.
right now. Are you still getting nothing? You still not getting anything? Testing. Does that mean my batteries are gone, or does that mean that the mic is gone?
I don't know.
Or both.
Okay. Not working?
I'll just keep you on auditorium.
All right, well, if you got the big mic, you just go ahead and bring up the gain on that. I've tried the switch. You want to try batteries? Swap out batteries? I mean, it can't hurt. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work. So, Sure, it got everything right. That would be funny if that was the issue. But are you getting it? Are you getting a reading now?
Tap your mic. No.
Still not getting a reading? Well, we may be in trouble then.
Use the other one. We use 3.
Well, I saw the light flash on, you tipped it on. Are you getting a difference? Let me know if you think that makes a difference. Disconnecting and reconnecting, did that happen at all?
Just tap your mic. We'll see.
Did it work?
I'll tell you in a second.
Just been a little standing right here. Sorry.
Are you in chapter 1?
Chapter 2, we're getting chapter 2.
Beginning of it?
Yeah, she's going that to her. Yeah, we're, but as we are in chapter 2. I mentioned earlier, I thought we were in chapter 3, but I didn't need to throw myself under the bus because my mic wasn't working in the first place, but I did, so there. But anyway, we're starting in chapter 2 and tracing the lineage from Jacob to David. There are a few points that I want to touch on, and then we'll be going into some other things there as well. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on the genealogy, other than to note that the genealogies are not only the genealogies of the children, the genealogies of all the children of Abraham. Literally, there are genealogies that speak about the genealogies of Ishmael, and the genealogies of Esau in here as well. Okay, even though as you look at the other books of the Bible, they don't figure very heavily in the narrative. But we'll start with Israel to David, and of course, before we do that, we need to go to God in prayer. Our gracious and heavenly Father, we are so thankful for the opportunity to come together today and study your word and to apply it to our lives, to study the correlation between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and we're so thankful for this Bible which you have given us, and so thankful for the care that you took in our upbringing and the relationship that you had with us. So thankful for the gift of your creation, and only through your power and your majesty and your wisdom. Thankful for your sense of justice that is unchanging and that we can rely on. One of the few things that changes in this world is your sense of justice, and we're so thankful that we have that as our guide. But we know that means that because we cannot be perfect, we are subject to your and need we desire and need your grace, your mercy, and we know that is provided for us out of your love, and went so far as to provide us with the life or with your Son, the second person of the Godhead, who came here as your Son, as man, as God among men, and set the example for us and helped to bring us the gospel. And we ask Heavenly Father for the opportunity to study this gospel and that it be scripturally sound, and that it be pleasing in your sight, and that it bring us to the need and the ability for spreading your word, for sharing your gospel with others. Evangelism is something that is very, very critical to the life of a Christian. We ask that you continue to guide us and protect us in that regard. We thank you for those who have made it here in this cold weather. We continue to pray for those who are struggling in this cold weather. We know that there are many who are in distress because of it. And we ask that you be with them and protect them, and be with those first responders and caregivers who are working to keep them safe, whether that be our police department or our ambulance drivers or our fire department. We know that this is a challenging time for all of us. And we ask that you continue to strengthen and guide us, not only our community, but our state and our nation as well in these trying times. And there are things going on in the world right now, Father, that we certainly could use your guiding hand as we seek to understand and to respond to those crises in the world in a way that is not only in accordance with your will, but it is for the betterment of our nation. We ask that you continue to do those things that will help us do those things that will present your word to a nation that so desperately needs it, knowing that without that we will not survive as a nation, as a beacon to the rest of the world. We ask that you continue to guide us in that regard. We ask that you be with our family members, our loved ones, and our brothers and sisters who are at home recuperating from injuries, recuperating from surgeries, and there are many, and those who are looking forward to surgeries and procedures as well. We thank you again for the skills you place in the hands of the doctors and the healthcare providers. We ask, Father, that you protect all of us. We ask that you continue to guide us through your gospel and give us the strength and courage to study your word and to apply it to our lives. We offer this prayer in your Son's name. Amen. Okay, so we're looking at chapter 2 from Israel today, and I have a few key passages that I want to bring to mind. Because we're going to be talking about the sons. When it says the sons of Israel, as it does in chapter verse 1 of chapter 2, it talks about the sons of Israel. Israel is Jacob. Okay, remember that when God purposed Jacob to his will, in fact, that's one of those things that he did as he purposed a person from the will of the world to his will. He would change their name. Abram was changed to Abraham. Sarai was changed to Sarah. Jacob was changed to Israel. Okay, and then he looks at the sons of Israel: Reuben, Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun, and Dan, and Joseph, and Benjamin, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Now I note that Reuben is the oldest son. And Reuben would have been the one who would have inherited, under normal circumstances, a double portion of Jacob's inheritance. That did not happen for reasons which we will perhaps touch upon a little bit later. But instead it fell to Simeon. All right, so as we continue on, we look at the sons of Israel, and then we look at the sons of Judah. Again, we'll go back in line, okay? So we look at each of these sons, and then it goes into their lineage. So verse 3 starts with the sons of Judah. And so we look at the sons of Judah, Onan, and Shelah, which three were born unto him of the daughter of Shua of the Canaanites. And the firstborn of Judah, was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he slew him. Okay? And Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remember that was Tamar's husband, and Judah, was slain. And Tamar, his daughter-in-law, bare him Pharez and Zerah. As we look at the sons of Judah, we know the story of that. We know that Judah was supposed to provide the next son down and the next son down as necessary for Tamar, and Tamar basically tricked him. All right, and when that happened, he had already basically violated the law by giving his younger son to someone else, and so Tamar he took Tamar as his wife, and she bare him Pharez and Zerah, and so that the sons of Judah were 5. And then it goes to the sons of Pharez as we continue down the line, and that is that we're talking about his grandsons, and Hezron and Hamul. And then we get down to and we go to the sons of Hezron, and the reason that I'm jumping in verse 9 to the sons of Hezron, they talk about Tamar. We already talked about Tamar. The account of this is in Genesis 38. If you want to go and read that on your own at some time. Because it is a detailed and perhaps a little bit sordid story. Okay? But as we go, we continue the sons of Pharez and Hezron and Hamul. But the important thing that I want to get to is the sons of Hezron. And you see that I've highlighted or emboldened some of the words, some of the names here. The sons of Hezron in verse 9 were born to him, Jerahmeel and Ram and Shilbai. But I jumped to Ram, and there's a reason that I jumped to Ram. Okay, Ram begat Aminadab, Aminadab begat Nahshon begat Salma, and Salma begat Boaz. Do I need to change the seven? I'll pull up this one. And maybe, just maybe, that will work. We'll see. If it doesn't work, then we'll have to change the mic itself. Double check for me and tell me if you're getting a reading now. Is anything happening? Still nothing?
Hold
on. Make sure. You're not getting an indicator on there that anything's happening. I'm tapping my mic. Are you getting anything now? Should have come through by now.
Tap it again.
Still nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. Mike's an issue. And you know that's what happens sometimes. So let's try this one and see how it works. The mic is a little sure. I'll just go ahead and go down there. I'll just let it flop.
You don't want to get me.
Not really, not in front of everybody. But let's see here. That should go around there, and the mic should go there, and it's on. Are you now getting a reading? You getting something now? You getting anything? Okay, all right. So y'all ignore this string that's hanging down here. As long as I don't trip over it, I'll be okay. But anyway, we're back to the sons of Hezron, and remember that Boaz married Ruth. Okay, took Ruth and married her, and then Boaz begat Obed, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse, of course, is the father of 7 sons. And Jesse
begat his firstborn Eliab, and Abinadab the second, and Shema the third, and Nethaneel the fourth, Radai the fifth, Ozem the sixth, and David the seventh. And so now we have traced the lineage to David. All right. And then we get into the David's sisters, or their brother, all the sisters, the daughters of Zeruiah. But we're not gonna get into that too much. I want to kind of skip over all of that. And so we're gonna at this point jump to the sons of David, the family of David, in First Chronicles 3. And bear with me here. I know that this is sort of hodgepodge here. We're playing hopscotch through the Bible, and I apologize for that. But believe me, I would fall asleep standing up here trying to read all the names, and it's very. I would like to do a study and try to tie these names into the geography at a later date, but believe me, it would take hours and hours and hours. It would probably be a study that would take scores of hours to get it right. Okay. And I intend to do that one day, but yes, Phil. Of Christ. And not only that, but the genealogy of all of the other offshoots of the family, and Christ's genealogy, of course, is in there as we go through. All right. And we talk about Judah. We will, of course, get there. Now, these were the sons of David, the firstborn, unto him in Hebron, the firstborn Amnon of Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess. So his mother's name was Ahinoam. Now, and the second Daniel of Abigail, the Carmelitess. Remember the man who fought against. I can't remember his name, but I think it'll pop back in there again. The second Daniel of Abigail the Carmelitess, the third Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur, the fourth Adonijah, the son of Haggith, the fifth Shephatiah of Abital, the sixth Ithream by Eglah, his wife. Of all those people, those were he speaks about one wife. These six were born unto him in Hebron, and there he reigned 7 years and 6 months. And then in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years. We remember that he was running from Saul, and then Saul died, and then one of Saul's sons was protected by by Saul's general. And he laid claim to the throne for a short period of time, and then and eventually he fell as well, and eventually the men, and the reason for that is a rather another sordid story, and we may get into that time permitting here today. But so we talk about him, and there are other passages that refer to the time that he spent. Of course, we go back to 2 Samuel, and we look at Ishbosheth, who was Saul's son, for 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel. And remember that Ishbosheth was the son that he actually was crippled. Okay. But that was due to an accident. He was injured and thereby crippled as a child. But the house of Judah followed David. And the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. All right. Now, 2 Samuel 3 talks about the war between the house of Saul and the house of David. When he says the house of Saul, he's talking about Ishbosheth and Ishbosheth's family. And David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker. And unto David were born the sons in Hebron, and of course we talked about them already. Okay, and Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. Remember that Nabal was an ally of Saul, and tried to undermine David. In fact, refused to help David at all. But then Abigail secretly went out and to basically to protect her household, took care of David's needs until Nabal died. And then when that happened, he took Abigail as his wife, so to speak. And then we look at there again. We look at all these who were born to David in Hebron, and we have already been over those names. And then we looked at the elders of Israel that came to the king of Hebron, and I want to mention here that that at this point there had been a revolution, and the general, Saul's general who had saved Ishbosheth, at one point, Ishbosheth, basically, he had came back from a campaign in Ishbosheth. Saul's son accused him of having an affair with Saul's concubine. Okay, and Ishbosheth, that was just that was an accusation, and whether or not it was true or not, the point was that it was really probably none of Ishbosheth's business in the first place because it was his father's concubine. But in any event, they had a falling out, and when they did, he took his men and pledged his allegiance to David. When he did that, that tipped the scales. Okay, remember that there was a divided kingdom at this time. Ishbosheth was ruling in one place, and David was ruling from Hebron, and so. As Ishbosheth lost all of his political influence, they all moved their alliance to David. All right, and so in Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. Then in Jerusalem again it says he reigned 30. And that's 2 Samuel, which is confirming what is being said here in Chronicles. And then were born to him in Jerusalem Shemaiah and Shobab and Nathan and Solomon, 4 of Bathsheba. Bathsheba is Bathsheba. It's just another name for Bathsheba, the daughter of Amiel, and Ibhar, also Elishama and Eliphalet and Noga and Nepheg and Japhia, Elishama and Eliada and Eliphalet, 9. And you note that Eliphalet comes up there a second time. More than likely, Eliphalet, the first Eliphalet, died as a child, and so that name was then assumed for another one of David's sons. Okay, these were all the sons of David, including, this says beside the sons, including the sons of the concubines, and Tamar, their sister, is mentioned here as well. Okay, so Tamar is a daughter of David's, if you will, and so you see that First Chronicles verses 5 through 9 speaks to that. And then we get to the family of Solomon, and we jump to Solomon. And I don't want to go through all of that, but I want to note something here. If you are reading through these verses, you get to 14. We talk about Ammon's and his son Josiah, his son. We're talking about the kings, okay, and we're talking about the kings of Judah at this point, and Jehoiakim, and the third Zedekiah, and the fourth Shallum. And then they jump to the sons of Jehoiakim, and then we note that the sons of Jeconiah are there, and what happens? Zedekiah disappears, and Zedekiah's bloodline disappears. And why is that? You recall that Zedekiah tried to abandon the city of Jerusalem and sneak out with his sons and sneak out with his guard to abandon his people as they were being surrounded by the Babylonians. But he got caught. So what happened? His sons were killed in front of him, and then they burned out his eyes, so that the last thing he saw was his sons and the end of his bloodline. All right? And then he was taken prisoner by the Babylonian king. So Zedekiah's bloodline ends there, and that is a point of history, a point of scripture that I wanted to bring out to you. And there are many more here, but I just wanted to touch on a couple of those. We're going to get to the family of Judah and the family of Simeon here, and I don't want to cover a lot of that, but we note that there's a passage here about Jabez, who was more honorable than his brethren, and that's verse 9. I'm not sure if I've got that, but and I did not put that in there, but Jabez was more honorable than his brethren. His mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bear him in sorrow. This is verses 9 and 10. And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, oh, that thou wouldst bless me indeed and enlarge my coast, that thine hand might be with me, that thou wouldst keep me from evil, and it may not grieve me. And God granted him that which he requested. Now, it's kind of interesting because as I've gone back through here, you see Jabez mentioned in Genesis 34, but Jabez is not listed as in this bloodline. It's just like he's just kind of put in there, but he must have been someone who was well known enough that they put him in there, and I'm not sure exactly why. And if I ever find that out, I'll make sure that I'll let you know. But then we get to verses 27. Correction, yeah. First Chronicles 4:27, and we talk about Shimei, who had 16 sons and 6 daughters, but his brethren had not many children, neither did all their family. And what I'm getting to here is the geography, the geographical examples of the geographical implications and of where these people settled. They dwelt in Beersheba and Moladah and Hazar-Shah, and remember that and Bilhah and Ezem and Tolad and Bethuel and Hormah and at Ziklag. Now, what do we know about Ziklag? Ziklag was where David lived with the Philistines when he ran away from Saul before he was actually installed as king. Okay, and at Beth Markabah and Hazar-Summim and Beth Barai and Sharam, and these were the cities unto their cities unto the reign of David when David became king. These were the families, and remember that Shimei was one who threw the rocks at David, and they wanted to go and kill Shimei, and David said, "No, I got this coming." Okay. Now Shimei later on did, in fact, was given a provisional stay of execution, which he violated, and eventually he was executed. And I don't think it was under David. I think it was under Solomon. Okay. And so we get to verse 40, and I really what I want to do, and I don't know how I managed to do that, but 34 verses 34. Yeah. These mention these princes, the princes and their families of the cities that were named there. By their names and princes and their families, the houses of their fathers increased greatly, and they went to the entrance of Gedor, even into the east side of the valley, okay, on the east of the valley of the river Jordan, okay, so we're talking about the eastern, those families that wanted to settle there, and they were told that they must go into Canaan and help them with their battles, and when it was over, they could go back, all right? And so, but we look at how they found pasture, fat pasture, and good, and the land was wide and quiet and peaceable, for they of Ham had dwelt there of old. Remember Ham and Japheth and Shem, okay? And the descendants of Ham apparently settled in this particular area, which was well known for pasture lands and great place to raise cattle and other forms of livestock, all right? And then we get to verse 41 and say, these written by name came in the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah, and smote their tents and habitations that were found there, and destroyed them utterly unto this day, and dwelt in their rooms. They killed them for their pasture land, is what they did. And they continued on. Some of them, even the sons of Simeon, 500 men went here, the descendants of Esau, okay, having for their captains Pelatiah and Neriah and Raphiah, Uzziel, the sons of Ishi, and they smote the rest of the Amalekites that escaped and dwelt there unto this day. Remember, they were told to destroy the Amalekites because they had conspired against them, had fought against them. All right, and so we see that that has happened. And then we get to the family of Reuben. And there's some things that are going on there. We talk about the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. We're still talking about Jacob's sons, for he was the firstborn. But here's the story: for as much as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto the sons of Joseph, the sons of Israel. Okay, so his birthright was given to Joseph's sons. All right. And the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. So he doesn't get a lot of that a lot of attention after that. For Judah prevailed above his brethren, and of him came the chief ruler, but the birthright was Joseph's. Joseph got all the property, but the line of succession was maintained in the family, so that his position and his children's position in the family would be protected. But Joseph's descendants got his portion, his double portion, as the firstborn of Jacob's inheritance and of the land inheritance as well. Remember when they came into the land, the children of Joseph were given those lands and privileges. Okay, because of Joseph's. Yeah. Okay. Right. Right. Okay, and so Bera his son, whom Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, this is 1 Chronicles 5, verses 6 and 7, and I want to point out to you that the sons of Jorah, and we look at the sons of Reuben, and then we get to the sons, we get to Bera, who is his son, whom Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, carried away captive. He was a prince of the Reubenites, and so one of the descendants of Reuben was captured by Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, and carried away. And remember that Tiglath-Pileser was a very cruel man, all right? And his brethren by their families, when the genealogy of their generations was reckoned, were the chief Jael and Zechariah. And I know that I pricked up my ears there when I was talking about that, but I see no indication that this is the Joel and the Zechariah of the prophets of the Scripture. So that is just a coincidental. Then we look at Bela, the son of Azaz, the son of Shema, the son of Joel, who dwelt in Aroer, even unto Nebo and Baalmeon, and eastward he inhabited unto the entering in of the wilderness of the river Euphrates, because their cattle were multiplied in the land of Gilead. So we talk about Gilead, that region east of the Jordan River, going all the way to as far as the desert would encroach on them, which they called the wilderness, if you will. Okay. So and then we look at the days of Saul, and these people in the days of Saul made war with the Hagarites, who fell by their hand and dwelt in their tents throughout all the land east of Gilead. And the children of Gad dwelt over against them in the land of Bashan until Salcah. Remember that Bashan was famous for its dairy products as well. Okay, and the balms of Gilead, those balms that were made probably with herbs infused in butterfat, if you will. Okay. So in those days, in the days of Saul, they made war with the Hagarites. Who are the Hagarites? What name comes to mind when you think of Hagarites or Hagarenes? You think of Hagar, okay, whom Abraham sent away, and Ishmael, okay. And so if you look at that, if you look at the Psalm 83, verses 6 through 8, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, and Assyria also joined with them. And so this was an imprecatory psalm. What we call that? We call that calling on God's wrath, calling God's wrath down on these enemies of Israel. And so we see that these are laid out; these are enumerated as Israel, as enemies of Israel. And so we see the Ishmaelites, the Moabites, the Hagarites, the descendants of Ishmael and Hagar, and the Amalekites, and the Philistines were the inhabitants of Tyre. So that takes Tyre and Sidon across on the other side. So and that's an aside that's mentioned there, because they were surrounded by enemies. They were actually being taken as slaves and sold as slaves. And Tyre was involved in that, and that's why Tyre was eventually destroyed. That was God's wrath being exercised through first the Greeks and then the Romans. All right. So we get to Chronicles 6, 1 Chronicles 6, and that is where I'm going to hold up right there, because we're going to start to talk about the Levites. We'll be starting to talk about the Levites and the Aaronic priesthood, and we'll be reminded of those restrictions that were placed upon them by God through Moses, okay, in that they were not allowed to hold land. They were basically given cities, if you will, and control over those cities and specific cities that were mentioned. But they were not given the land holdings surrounding them. Those were assigned to other tribes, and those cities, specific cities within those land holdings, were then assigned to the priests of the Aaronic line and to the Levites, the Kohathites, the Merarites, the Gershonites, who had different responsibilities, remember, as they were coming through the wilderness in terms of building up, putting together, breaking down, and carrying the accoutrements and the tabernacle itself, the tent itself of worship, through the tribes, through the desert. And remember that they traveled in a close formation. They all traveled in a formation, in the same formation that they set up their tents. And of course, we'll probably get into that as we look at Exodus. We'll get a closer look at that down the road. So, are there comments? And Phil, you know as much about this as, if not more than I do, about Chronicles. And Chronicles was one of those studies that I was regrettably not exposed to in my formal as formal training as I ever got. And that's another story altogether. But if there are no comments or questions about it right now, again, I apologize for the disjointed nature of this, but otherwise, we'd be reading through thousands of names, and we really don't want to do that. Yes.
I would say God's purpose in setting aside the Levites as a priestly tribe was his way of separating them from the other tribes. And I think there was a certain amount of prestige that went with that.
Right.
And there was a certain amount of resentment from the other tribes. Because basically their only responsibility was the temple.
Yeah.
They were sophisticated butchers.
But that kept that, but that did keep the care and construction and carrying of the tabernacle in a confined area. But also remember that the Levites were chosen for that task as a substitute for God taking the firstborn of every Jew and pressing them into his service. So yeah, I can see where they would be upset. But then on the other hand, it didn't take them long to forget that because of that, they weren't saying goodbye to their firstborn sons to go into God's service, every one of them. So the Levites were chosen as an alternative to that, a very wise choice. Yeah, go ahead.
Take that all the way up to the time of Christ and Caiaphas.
Yes.
I've often thought that they didn't want to lose their position. That's why they were so adamant about crucifying Christ.
Right. Because Christ wasn't a Levite.
Right. He was from the tribe of Judah.
That's correct.
And that's where the kings came from. But the priests didn't want to lose their positions. And this itinerant preacher is going to upset everything that they got going. And he professes to be the Messiah. It was religious people that crucified Christ.
Exactly. And many of them might have genuinely considered him to be a blasphemer. And of course, a blasphemer was subject to the death penalty. Now, under Roman law, they couldn't do that. Roman law prevented them from executing for the crime of blasphemy. They had to have a crime under Roman law for which he was. And so they drummed up charges of just exactly that. Okay. They said, this man says he's king. Okay. And so, but we have no king but Caesar. Remember what they said? We have no king but Caesar. How God must have felt about that. So, yeah, you're right. And it could have been, it was probably, there was probably a lot of rice bowl going on there too. But it bothers me that so many of them could see the prophecies of the coming of the Messiah and the prophecy of the Gentiles, the gospel being taken to the Gentiles, and that they were so resentful of that. But then you go back to Jonah, and he probably felt the same way. But God's plan is God's plan. And so we need to walk with God. We need to run with God.
He set that in motion thousands of years before the time of Christ.
Absolutely. Hey, in fact, he set it in motion before he even put Adam and Eve on earth. Probably, I would say that because of all this, that God would never even have started, God would not have started the process of creation unless the second person of the Godhead said, I'll do this. Knowing from the first words, let there be light. And remember that by whom all things were made talks about the second person of Godhead. Second person of Godhead was instrumental in the creation and instrumental in the sacrifice that was necessary to achieve the full end of that. And that was when God said, let us make man in our own image, which means a spirit. And so this is just a step along the way to saved souls in heaven with God. That is the ultimate. That is the ultimate stage of God's creation, is us with him in heaven eternally. And thanks, Phil, for bringing me up to that point. We'll take a break now and we'll come back at the top of the hour. Thank you.